Hello, welcome to Mosaics, a podcast of the Idaho Office for Refugees to share vibrant and diverse stories from throughout our state. My name is Holly Beach, and I am joined today by my colleague, Klaudia Saric. Welcome, Klaudia. Thank you for being here today. Klaudia is a business development specialist with Jannus Economic Opportunity here in Boise, and she helps people from diversity of backgrounds as they work to open their own business and navigate that process. So some of my favorites around town, some restaurants I love to go to, they were able to open because of economic opportunity, helping them get that first grant. So I'm really excited to talk with Klaudia and hear more about your life and the work that you do here. So welcome to Mosaics.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be your guest.
So I would love for people just to get a little chance to get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
I came as a refugee from Bosnia in 1997 due to war in my country that has started in 1992. After a year and a half, my husband and I, we left our country to Germany and were temporarily placed for, I think it was 3 years in Germany. And at the time, we needed to make a decision whether we are going to go back, which war it was on the end, but it was not ended yet, or we are going to apply to go to third country someplace else. So we have applied for 5 countries in the United States Refugee Resettlement Program. That was the first one who answered to us, and we responded, and that's how we ended up here.
Wow. What other 4 countries did you apply to?
Canada, New Zealand, Australia, United States, and my husband got offer for job because he was in electronics at that time in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And
we ended up here.
Here in Boise.
Yeah. Originally placed in Twin Falls because in meantime we got in a contact with his uncle who lived in Twin Falls, and his uncle came as a refugee right from a concentration camp back in 1994.
Wow.
So we came in a contact with him when he told us, you can come here or you can go someplace else, wherever you want. And my husband has a cousin in Chicago, another cousin in LA, and a cousin here. So we just came in contact with all 3 of them. And when they have explained to us what's the life over there, we were like, we're going to go to Idaho.
What was said about Idaho that made that the pick?
Well, our main concern was crime in Chicago and in LA as a big cities. But the other thing is we thought it's much easier to have a new start in a smaller place, smaller town than in a big city. And we were thinking, let's try to go first smaller place until we accommodate. And then after that, if we want to move someplace else, then we can move it. Mm-hmm. So, and I didn't speak in English at that time. So for me, it was like, okay, how am I going to navigate in a country that I don't even don't know the language nor the culture or anything?
Yeah. And did your husband speak any English?
A little bit. He learned the English in high school, but how much you can remember from that?
Yeah, and it doesn't always apply well in real life situations.
No, it's just like few basic sentences that you can navigate around.
So at this point, how old were you both?
In early 30s. I think I was 32, 31. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. And did the 2 of you have kids with you? Was it just
you?
No,
it was just 2 of us. Okay. And later we got our son, Danny, who is 20 now.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about what growing up in Bosnia was like? Were you in a big city? Were you in a small town? What was your environment like there?
I grew up in a beautiful city of Mostar, which is world known as by the old bridge that has been built in 1566 by Ottoman Empire. Wow. And that's the city that has over 200 days in a year, sunshine, climate is mild, Mediterranean climate, and it was really nice. And I grew up there, happy childhood with 2 parents and my sister. Mm-hmm. My mother was a math and physics teacher. My father was manager at one company. And just and the sister and I.
Were you by the water?
There is the coldest. I didn't know at that time. Actually, I found out later that Neretva, the river that goes through the city, is one of the coldest river in the world.
Oh, wow. So I imagine you didn't swim much in it.
Oh yeah, we did. Actually, I
froze your buns off.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's just like around 70 miles from the Mediterranean coast, from the Adriatic coast. Sorry. Yeah.
That sounds cool. What did your family do together for fun?
We would go to Adriatic coast camping. We would go on a picnics, like on daily picnics with the friends. And my parents liked travel, so every other year they would go to some European destination, like visit some countries like Greece, Spain, Germany, Denmark, or whatever they wanted.
With you or no? Just the adults?
Some of the visits were with me and my sister, and some of them it's just like adults because they needed break from us.
Yeah,
and from
good for
kids.
them. Good for them.
Yeah,
that's something that's so cool about living in that region is you can so easily get to other countries and experience other cultures right next door. Like for us, it takes so much time and money to get to those places.
That is correct, because especially since Bosnia has a kind of like on a crossroad. It's like across the Adriatic coast is Italy. Above north, it's Hungary. To the left, it's Greece. It's just like kind of like crossroad of the north to south, east and west. And part of the old Silk Road toward Europe was over us. So for some reason, we were very attractive location for many imperialistic countries at that time, from Ottoman to Venetians to France. Even Napoleon was there, and from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So it's just like for some reason they like that location. So probably because it's centralized location.
Can you share a little bit about the history of what was starting to happen that caused your family to have to leave?
Former Yugoslavia was, to some people, very liking country, and they liked to live in there, and some people just didn't like it. Like in every other country, you have people who like and dislike the system. But for some reason, back in our country, religion and nationalism was too mingled to the point that people identify religion with nationality. So it's just like whoever was Catholic was Croatian, or whoever was Orthodox was Serb, whoever was Islamic Muslim religion, it was Bosniak. And so the politicians who were manipulating with people, they used that as a weapon to control those people. And they basically, once when they started having control over the religion or nationality, they could have done whatever they want with people. We have one philosopher and very wise person who said, people are like a dough with hands. You can shape it however you want. And that's basically it, what the politicians have used that to shape people's minds and thinking, and use them as a weapon to fulfill their goals. And their goal was to lead the country in direction they wanted, not in the direction where we were. And so that's how the Yugoslavia, as a country of 6 states of republics, just started splitting in each republic became independent country.
Okay. And I know that a lot of people, there was a genocide, correct?
Yes.
And a lot of people were targeted and killed. And was your family among the group that would have been targeted? Is that why you had to leave?
Yes. I come from a family that has a Croatian background. even though we live in Bosnia, because Bosnia it's like kind of like Switzerland, made country of the three nationalities. Like in Switzerland, you have French, Italian, and Germans. So Bosnia, it's like Croatian, Serbs, and Bosniaks. And since I mentioned already, the politicians made nationality and religion connected. So basically, I come from Croatian background, and my husband comes from a Bosniak background, and my sister is married to Serb guy from Serb background. So basically, my family was mixed, and as a mixed family, whichever side you take, one is going to suffer. So, and for example, in the first year of the war, on one side, I can speak about my city, how it was divided. On one side were Bosniaks and Croatians together, and their militaries were together fighting against the Serbs and their military. So then, in meantime, Bosniak and Croatians, they are not good friends anymore, if I may say so. Then, and to translate to layman's language, so it's then they became enemies. At that point, when my mom was very politically informed and very politically literate, and she saw up front what's going to happen. After being a year in a war, she was pushing me and my husband, because my husband's family is from Muslim religion, and we are Catholic religion. So, and she says, do you see what's happening? You are going to be victim of this nonsense. And she tried to pursue me to leave a country. And since I didn't have a children at that time, I didn't want to live by myself. And my husband, if he leaves a country, he would be considered a deserter. And I didn't want to leave until my husband have. In meantime, we just, when you are in a denial, you see something is happening, but you don't want to believe. That's what's the stage my husband and I we were, because we just couldn't believe, because 30% of the marriages in the city where we are from are mixed marriages. And what will happen? Are those people are going to kill us because we are married to different nationality, or what's going on? So when my mom have pushed us, basically, then my husband and I, we said, okay, I will leave the country. And my mom says, if you want, I can go with you so that you don't feel just by yourself. So, and then in meantime, if nothing happens, then I can come back. And if that situation gets worse, then he is going to leave country rather than become victim. And on May 3rd, 1993, my mom and I, we left country after a year of really closed. The city was really closed. Nobody can come in and out except the Red Cross. So when we left the country, 7 days after that, the worst thing that could happen in a war has happened. Ethnic cleansing. People are taken to concentration camps, and they were killed on the streets. And my husband, he tried to save some people, but he was risking his life, saving other people, his friends, or doesn't matter who was on the street. And after a couple of months of nightmare, he decided, this is not my war anymore. I cannot survive here. This is taking to the next level. And so he didn't want to be part of that. And so he left. I think it was July. In the meantime, when he left, his brother and his father have been taken to concentration camp, Croatian concentration camp. So basically, military from my nationality took my brother and my father-in-law to the concentration camp.
Mm.
So, and that was really moment where I could not believe this is happening. How it's unbelievable how people became beasts,
Mm.
and how nothing inhumane stays in them. At that point, that transformation, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
So he came to Germany to join me. He left illegally country and came over there. And in the meantime, we continue living in Germany to see situation, what's going on. Are we going to go back? And we were hoping it's going to be solved. Problem it will be resolved soon, and but didn't happen. So, and that war in between Croatians and Bosniaks went even deeper to the point that basically at one point a river was the border in between. Everybody, almost everybody, from the one side of the river has been either killed or sent to another side or taken to concentration camp. So basically, ethnically clean side.
Mm.
I mean, you can see here and there some people from different nationality in that area, but I don't know, not even close what was before.
Wow. Your relatives, and including your sister and her husband, were they okay?
Luckily, they lived in another city, and they were okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not easy for them. But my brother-in-law, he was former Yugoslavia military airplane pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a really difficult time to go in war against his friends, my sister relatives,
Wow.
other relatives, because as I mentioned, many people had mixed marriages. It's how do you turn against somebody who you love or their family? It's very difficult. So they managed to somehow to stay where they were. But did they suffer? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask what happened to your brothers, or your husband's brother and his father?
My brother-in-law, he was in concentration camp for I think 1 month. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure, and he was really fortunate in that time. So the one of the guard at the prison and in that not prison, that concentration camp,
Mm-hmm.
knew our family, and he managed to get him out.
Wow.
So and he had a really hard time, of course, hungry and beaten on daily basis. So when that guy took my brother-in-law out of the concentration camp, he thought he's going to take him to execution.
Wow.
And he took him in a car and he says, change into the clothes, you're going home. So he took him home, and my family has helped him to escape the city and go to Croatia, get some kind of passports or documents so that he ended up in London where he had friends. And in London, in England, when he came, he gave them paper. And he says, I'm seeking asylum. I just came from a concentration camp. And they have, thanks goodness, Red Cross has registered them. And he was in the record. And that's how he got asylum in the Great Britain.
Mm.
My father-in-law, he was in the concentration camp, I think, 3 or 4 months, until International Rescue Committee and the Red Cross in UN, they came and basically closed the concentration camp.
Wow. Wow, Claudia, I'm so sorry to hear what your family has gone through. And when you say things like people were reduced to their nationality or their religion became how we saw each other. That's your identity. That's who you are. That sounds familiar. That's not unique to Bosnia, and you can see it happening here. I see people getting, dismissed because of the country of origin they came from. It happens here, and that's scary when people can reduce each other like that, dehumanize each other. It's scary what it can lead to.
It is very scary, and since then I have had a couple of situations. Excuse me. I have had a couple of situations where I had really flashbacks.
Wow.
Like, oh, I hope this country is not going to go the same direction, because it is so close to go to that same direction. So, because it's so polarized, and the politicians are using people and their identity to manipulate them in the direction they want.
Does that drive you in the work that you do today?
Yes, because even though I come from the country that is like pretty much we don't have anybody else but Bosniaks. I mean, Bosnian people who live there for centuries. We don't have like Asians. We don't have different or Asians or Africans or something like that from different continent people. But when somebody wants to hate, they will find a reason to hate. And I'm trying to fight that. Even though, as I said, I come from the country that doesn't have diversity as here in the United States exists. And I'm really amazed how much people are open for diversity. But also it hurts to see when somebody is so closed-minded and they don't want to accept reality. We are one globe. We don't have, when you look Earth from the, I don't know, from airplane, there is no border except continent and water. So I don't know why people are using that as a weapon. I really don't know.
It is scary, and it's fueling my work too, to try to humanize, groups that may have been dismissed or marginalized. Try to see the humanity in each other and the connection. And the work that you do is really empowering because it allows people to fulfill their own dreams and it empowers them in their own life. Can you share a little bit about who you work with and what you help them to accomplish?
In 1998, I started working at the Agency for New Americans as a case manager. And my goal was to help my fellow Bosnians who have been through the same or even worse situations than I have experienced in my life. And so then I have realized during that work that many come with skills that are going to be useful in their life and that they can have a good living without it. They don't have to work minimum wage jobs or suffer rest of their life. They can provide for their family, have a new start. So, and I was in one conference in Arlington, Virginia. It was ORR, which is Office of Refugee Settlement conference, when I have attended one workshop, and they were talking about program and grant that helps refugees to start business. I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is perfect for us. We have population of the people who are very skillful, and we are getting another populations like from other countries. And you can see that some people are like more, I want to own my own business, but other kind of people is like, no, give me a good job. I'll stay in that area. That's fine, perfectly. But those people who had many skills and had the business ownership abilities, they didn't have that opportunity. So to get a loan from the bank, it's 0.05% possibility.
Just because they didn't have any credit built up, or
No credit building, no credit history, no existing business that they can proven financial projection or anything that they are successful business. And it was really hard. So then at that time, the Christina Bruce Pignon, she was the director of the Agency for New Americans, and her and I, we sat down and we talked about it. And she says, let's try to do a focus group and see is there interest of people to have such a program. And when we have called people from my community, that we couldn't pack them all in a room, in a conference room. So we had an interview with them, and then based on those information that we got, we applied for a grant and got a grant. And in 2002, we started with a program. At that time was called META, which is Micro Enterprise Training and Assistance. Mm-hmm. And then Christina told me, what do you think you are transferring to that META program instead of being case manager anymore? And I said, I'd love to. Mm-hmm. So that's how my former colleague Ron Burning and I, we were first employees of the program.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was a really nice experience. And it was just like you can see the light in their, like on the end of the tunnel for some people.
Yeah.
And how they felt like excited that they can do whatever they want to do. They just felt like, yeah, I do have the same opportunity like everyone else.
Especially after losing so much choice in their life.
Yeah.
To even relocate to a different continent, like you lost that choice too. I mean,
I usually compare refugees as a soaring eagle. Mm-hmm. When you are a young eagle and you're just taking off in your life and somebody cuts off your wings, that's how we feel. Until those feathers grow again, you're not capable of flying. So that's how we feel.
Wow. For you, what helped you feel like you were regaining? What helped you feel like your feathers were growing again when you were a younger, newer refugee arrival in Idaho? What helped you feel like you were finding your way to soar again?
Yes, I felt like that's my mission, to help other people to start a new life. Because when I came here, as I mentioned, I didn't speak English, and I felt like I'm disabled because there is nothing wrong with that, but I didn't feel comfortable because I wanted to know what people are telling me. I wanted to express what I feel and how I feel, or what I want to say. I want my voice be heard. And I was like, okay, first thing first, you have to learn this language.
Yeah, and there was no like Google Translate. You could just use your phone at that time.
And I was watching, basically how I have started learning, it's watching PBS and cartoons.
Oh.
And Sesame Street was my favorite at that time.
Which one?
Sesame Street.
Oh, Sesame Street.
Yes.
Nice. That's a great way to learn.
Yeah.
So the Muppets helped.
I know, because they were using simple language and which I could connect. And basically, I felt like a child who needed parents to lead in the right direction. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt.
I never thought about, you said you felt like you had a disability without the language, and it is like a blindness in a way. You're kind of walking around the world and you don't, you can hear and you can see, but it doesn't make any sense what's happening. You can't express what's happening for you. I never thought of it like that.
Funny you mentioned that. When I left the Agency for New Americans, I worked at the Idaho Commission for Blind and Visually Impaired. Mm-hmm. And one vendor, I was helping blind and visually impaired merchants to have a business in the food industry.
Oh, wow.
So the one merchant who was totally blind, he said something like, "You don't understand me." And I said, "Yes, I don't understand you. I'm trying to understand you, and I can relate to you." He says, "How come? You're not blind." And I said, well, I came as a refugee. And there is a similarity. And I said, when people talk with you, they don't know that you are blind. He says, yeah. But when they talk to me, they know that I'm foreigner by my accent.
Mm.
He looked at me. Sorry. It's just funny to say he looked at me.
Mm-hmm.
He responded, he says, oh, so they know that I'm blind when they see me. But if they talk with me on the phone, they don't know that I'm blind. And I said, exactly. When I talk on the phone or when I talk with somebody who doesn't see me first, they immediately know that I'm not from here. And that's the similar experience. People are responding to you different when they know that you are blind as they are responding to me until I open my mouth.
Mm.
So
did you start to connect better after that?
oh yeah.
Wow.
We were like best friends.
Wow.
Yeah, he felt like he can trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, there is a relationship between those two.
Mm-hmm. When you said you first resettled in Twin Falls, a little bit smaller community. Did you have fellow people around you from Bosnia, from refugee backgrounds to relate to, or did you feel isolated, or what was it like that first year for you?
We did have, as I mentioned, my husband's uncle, one was in Twin Falls, one was in Boise. So they had a community of people who were friends that they have been related. Mm-hmm. And that was really nice. And we felt welcomed. And we had like kind of support system. Because when we first came, they said, okay, if you want to get a job, here's what we have a job opening here. And if you need a car, we can help you to get a car there. And they were just like those people who first came in 94, 93 or 4, I'm not sure. They had a really difficult time because they didn't have anybody. So then in between those few people who were first settled here, they got together and they decided, okay, whoever comes next, we will try to help them. They don't have to go through what we went through.
Wow, they pioneered for you.
Yes.
Wow.
Same thing like pioneers back then settled in a place and they helped each other.
Yeah, it's like what we see now with people from Ukraine and Afghanistan and Democratic Republic of Congo. Especially with Ukraine and Afghanistan, with the recent evacuations, people here that had been here for decades because their families in the 90s were refugees. We saw a lot of that. They stepped up to help them not feel alone when they got here. But I think in the 90s, Bosnia was the number one country of origin to Idaho, right, for refugee resettlement, if I remember correctly.
I think at the time, in between 94 and 2000, something like that, in Idaho came around 3,000 to 5,000.
Mm-hmm. So the war in Bosnia, when did it end?
November 96.
Okay.
Officially, peace has been signed. But
it takes years to heal from something like that.
Even after that, peace has been signed. Peace agreement has been signed. Real end of the war didn't happen for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Have you been back since?
Yes.
What was that like to go back?
First time when I went over there, it was right before I came here to the United States. It was probably a month after the peace have been signed. It was terrible. It was terrible to see destroyed city, like 95% of the city has been destroyed. It was terrible. I cannot even describe how I felt. I have a feeling like somebody tried to choke me when I saw from going like coming from Bogus Basin, something like that. You have to come to the city. from that west side. When I was going from foothills down to the city, like I felt like somebody's choking me. That's how, like pictures of Hiroshima or something like that. It is really, really bone chilling.
And it's so sad, like to think about your childhood memories. You shared such fond memories of how beautiful it was, and it makes me think of my life here in Boise, how much I enjoy our little city here. To think of it not being here anymore is really heart-wrenching.
It is really heart-wrenching, especially knowing that what you had in your memory doesn't exist anymore and will never exist again. Because once when you lose something, you have your favorite vase, and when it breaks, you take glue and put it together, but you can still see those lines and cracks that you put together. It's never going to be the same. That's the life of a refugee or somebody who leaves the country, especially if you didn't see that destruction to that level.
Then you see it again. Did you go back later when
Yes.
it was, and what was it like when you went back later? What year was that?
I went in 2000. Then after that, probably 2004 or 5. Every 4 or 5 years, I try to go over there and to see my family, because I was the only one from my family who left.
Okay. And your mom went back?
My mom went back to Germany because my father didn't want to go to Germany. He's going to guard the house. He didn't want to leave the country. He's just like, I'm 50, 60-year-old. I'm not going to go anywhere. Whatever happened. So
yeah,
old stubborn man. At that time, I thought he's old stubborn man. So
it makes sense though.
But it's very difficult. That's like that generation. It's very difficult. And I have witnessed that as refugees who didn't have opportunity to stay their home, and they came to United States and other countries. That adjustment for that people who are in their 50s, 60s, it's very difficult.
Yes, it does seem harder to me than if you were 7 years old or even in your 20s. I mean, it's hard any time of your life, but to adjust at that age.
As younger you are, it's much better. But if you are in an age where it's like very difficult to learn a new language, very difficult to adjust to new culture, life, there is a lot of depression happening. Beside the trauma that they have experienced in their life.
Just that change of
even
way
if
of
somebody
life.
takes you from peaceful to peaceful place at that age and you have to live there, you cannot go back, it's going to be tough time.
Yes. I'm thankful we have people like you who are helping, you said find their wings again, make those choices for their life that they want and empower them. Who are some of the people that you've worked with and be able to help establish their business that you're really proud of? Can you share some of like who they are and what they've done?
There are many people, businesses that have been started. Some of them have been, some of them have survived, some didn't. Like first business that I have started was mechanic shop that was on Orchard, and that mechanic shop was existing for 3 to 5 years, I guess, after started, and the guy who owned the shop decided to close the shop for the health reasons, and he became CDL driver, and he owned a truck, and he had the trucking company until he retired.
Okay.
So he got his opportunity to start a business, and that business evolved into another business. So then the Sunshine Spice Cafe, Shams Sisters, they came. I wasn't working at the time, but I know that they came and they have received some assistance from Economic Opportunity Program. And now they are very successful business owners, and they have opened, or they are opening right now, the second location.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
It's amazing. And James Beard nominees.
I know.
It's like, whoa.
So, and those are the Shams sisters coming from Afghanistan. And I do recall when they came, and I think in 2000, something like that, 2001, when they came, like father, mother, and four sisters, four daughters,
girls, yeah,
young girls. I do recall that. And another one also who recently I have helped to relocate a business, it's Tarbush Restaurant, even though I wasn't a part of EO at the time when he started with international market booth, and then opened the first restaurant that he sold, then opened Tarbush, and now Tarbush has moved to another location that's on a Broadway, that's much larger location. And I happened to talk with him, I think last month, and he's really happy.
Mm-hmm. I chatted with him too, and he does seem really happy in his new location, and he's able to hire other former refugees and provide, open up jobs in the economy and do what he loves to do. He was telling me that he was a chef before he became a refugee in countries all over around Iraq and neighboring countries. And when he got here, he's like, well, I'm good at cooking. I'll keep doing that. And then his restaurant burned down when the international market burned down, which I never got to experience the international market. I'm so sad. It sounds like it was such a special place.
I went a few times there before they burned. They were like different. It looks like a booth, and each business had a different booth. And like somebody who was selling from Africa clothing, then somebody who was doing the jewelry, then here this one catering business. It was not full scale restaurant, but had like a mini kitchen and something like that. And it was really a place where you can go and visit and hang out on a place a little bit. So it was a really good place to help people to start.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sad that it doesn't exist anymore, it seems. But it's cool to see that people have gone on to continue their business in different locations. Kibrum's is another one that comes to mind, the Ethiopian restaurant.
That's right. Kibrum restaurant is a very successful restaurant.
I think he also was a James Beard nominee, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that, but I remember
I'm not sure about that, but he was, I think, one of the year, I think 2019 or 20, I'm not sure. He was like best restaurant in the area, something like that.
Yeah, he's great. So it's cool to see people that were able to get their start and run with it and do what they love to do.
And beside the restaurants, there are other businesses that people are opening, like successful cleaning business that we don't know about it. And I know, for example, from the Bosnian community, there were like 3 or 4 very successful businesses that has been started. Some with our help, with some of them didn't need any help. So, and they also but we are not serving just refugees. We are serving entire state of Idaho. So whoever wants to start business in entire Idaho, they can come to us and we can help them to start business.
That's a really good point. It's not, the economic opportunity is there for, regardless of your background, there to help people with building your credit. You offer free financial courses, financial literacy, business courses. And then one thing that I think is really cool that EO does is the cohort of in-home childcare providers. So helping, I think it's mostly women that you work with the cohort.
That's correct.
Helping them open their own business and then you have these childcares available now, like, oh, here's one Adari speaking or Swahili speaking childcare, which we know that childcare is a huge need in our whole country. anyways. It's so expensive and hard to get in. And
That's interesting. And I'm trying to put those small businesses, and especially childcare business, and area that we have. Like I try to market for them because those are like bilingual childcare providers. They speak English and they speak their native language. Even if you're an English speaker, and it's going to be beneficial for your kid to be exposed to more than one language.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to speak that language. But brain development is different, and it's much better in adjusting in a different situation if it has different directions. So, and I think it's a very beneficial. And for that reason, for example, many of the refugees that I know, we insist that our children are speaking our language, not because that we think that they will have a future in our country or that they will benefit from knowing that language for monetary or whatever reasons. It's just like brain develops different, and it's able to see things different than if you are never faced with another language. That's the reason why we are learning in school different languages, even if it's 1 year.
Yeah, you're right. It's so valuable because languages have a whole different perspective of the world. Like, in English you might say, I am hungry. In Spanish, you'd say, I have hunger. And just different ways of seeing things and expressing them. And I think in one language I heard, like, instead of saying I miss you, it's like, you are missing from me. And it's just special ways of the way different we see the world comes out in how we talk. And it's cool to be exposed to that, and not just for the linguistic aspect, but the whole perspective of the world that comes with it. Do you and your husband still speak in Bosnian together?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's now we are speaking something like they say Spanglish or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Spanglish for Bosnian. I don't know how you would say that with Bosnian.
But I don't know. How would I say that?
That's funny. You kind of just
because
mix it.
Now, since we are like almost 30 years here.
Yeah. You're almost here longer than you.
Yes.
That's crazy. That must be crazy for you.
So I'm longer outside of my country than I lived in my country.
Okay.
So even though like I didn't spend all the time here in the United States, but
Germany.
majority of my life was here as adult. So the now my husband and I, we start a conversation on the Bosnian, but if when brain is using what is easier. So if I find a word that is easier to pronounce or say on English, then we, in the middle of the sentence, we just use English words.
Just throw it in there. That's
but
funny.
The funny thing was when we lived in Germany and we came here and I started learning English like intensively and then going to classes on a daily basis, I started mixing languages. And once my husband had asked me something, and in one sentence I have included Bosnian, German, and English. And he looked at me. He says, "Please decide which language you're going to speak. I cannot follow you." So it's like those things happen. And our son, when he was little, we insisted that he speaks on English. Bosnian in the house. But once when he started school, he didn't want to speak Bosnian anymore. And by first grade, he has lost Bosnian. He understood everything, but he didn't want to speak. And my mom was in a visit, and she doesn't speak English. And I had to go on a business trip. And my husband was not at home. So basically, her and my son, they were together. And there is my phone ringing, and he calls me. My son calls me. He says, "Mom, can you tell Grandma so-and-so?" And I said, "Nope, find your way."
That's awesome.
And I hang up, and I didn't want to translate for him. And I said, you know better than that. So I didn't want to help him. And when we went to visit back to Bosnia, a couple of months before we went there, and I said, you need to start responding, because I would tell him on a Bosnian, but he's responding on English to me. And I was acting like I don't understand him. And he says, Mom, I know you know English. So, and I told him, you need to learn to be able to play with other kids, because in Bosnia, kids don't speak English. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to play with anybody. You will not have friends. He was, I think, 7 or 8. I'm not sure. So when we were on the Frankfurt airport at the gate, he has realized that people over there speak either German or Bosnian. Mm-hmm. And he says, Mom, nobody speaks English here. And I said, yeah, I told you. So when we came to Bosnia, he had a friend, our next door neighbor, who was learning English in a school. And so he could understand some little bit, because back in my country, kids start learning a second language at the 4th grade, and they are learning second language all the way through the education. Mm. And so that boy knew a little bit English, and so they could speak a little bit. And after 2-3 days, my son was picking up, and after that, he was off the go. It's just like coming back.
Yeah, it
sounds like embedded in his brain.
He wanted to do what his peers were doing, and here that was English, and there.
Yeah,
I think kids. Yeah, it's interesting how kids. Like my niece was learning Spanish, and I'd like, hey, let's practice together. I learned Spanish a little bit too, and she was like, she got so shy about it, like, oh, I don't. And so kids can be resistant to it, but I think once they're adults, that's such a fortunate gift they were given, to have 2 languages from an early start, because it's hard to incorporate once, if you're not a kid.
It is much difficult.
Mm-hmm. Well, Klaudia, I'm sad that our time is coming to an end, because I really enjoyed our conversation. And I know we touched on some painful and some scary things. And I appreciate you opening up about that and what your family went through, what you went through. And do you have anything you'd want to leave listeners with after our conversation today?
First of all, I have to thank you for this opportunity. And but only thing is that I have to, as a message, be who you are and embrace people around you. Mm-hmm. That's the most important. The people that you love and people who you are with, embrace them.
Mm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a good reminder. Especially for me, as my husband is currently on a motorcycle trip in Vietnam.
Wow.
And I'm not scared at all. Don't. I'm like, can you please text me and tell me you're okay? No. So, no, that hits home right now. But thank you. And
sometimes people don't value what they have until they lose it.
Yeah. But you're a wonderful person to get to work with, to see your impact in the community, and you're just fun. And I'm learning more and more about you on the way here. It was fun that you played your music from Bosnia for me, and I learned that you were a music major, a vocalist. I didn't know that about you. That's very cool. Someday I'll get you to come do karaoke with me. I'm going to keep working on it. But all right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining the conversation. For more information on how to be involved with refugee resettlement, please visit idahorefugees.org. Mosaics is produced by the Idaho Office for Refugees with grant support from the M.J. Murdoch Charitable Trust. Music by the Afrosonics. Production in partnership with SB Studios.